Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to another scene from the living world of darkness, Rage Across New York. And in today's scene, after the somewhat bipolar day that 10 Point has had previously, and the unfortunate end to that particular day, wherein she gained and then immediately lost the approval of two of the people from which it matters most, she is understandably determined to, while not perhaps make things right in one gesture, to clear the air a little bit before members of the Sept go into battle against the spirals that have been hunting through their territory and taking their kin. And so, while she has spent the night with Aiden doing what Fianna do best when they can't sleep and there's battle coming and drums hammering, which is essentially to half nakedly drink and sing and dance with the kinfolk. And then there's been that. She's been perhaps peripherally a part of helping Aiden prepare for battle, but there are many kin to do that, and no kin can do this for her. So this takes priority even before she prepares herself for battle. And so she will go looking for Dallas to perhaps alleviate some of the inevitable tension that has resulted from her actions. So with only perhaps half-grown and velvet-covered antlers, the bells slung loosely around their base rather than bound to the branches, she will go searching in the most logical place to find an agitated Arun. Yeah, she's going right for the training grounds.
Well, as she comes up on the training grounds, it's almost as if they're a little bit darker today, a little bit emptier. The way the canopy of the trees is kind of coming down on it, it's almost like the area is cast in shadow. And there is at least one voice there within that veil-protected part of the sept, and the scent of blood, dried blood, is somewhat heavy in the air. And there is the sound of grunts and growls and every other kind of conceivable noise as far as someone in the thralls of vigorously training or working, at least. As 10 Point comes up, Dallas's fists come up to, there's a larger training post, one that's more meant for climbing up on and maintaining balance at the top. It's almost as big around as a tree. And as Dallas hits it, as 10 Point walks up, she can see that there are claw marks high up on it, and down low there are blade marks on it. There's blood all over it, and Dallas at the moment is currently in the process of smashing her fist into it to the point of where the wood actually creaks and splinters as she punches, sort of growling, almost screaming out. She slams her forehead into it a few times, leaving bloody indentations into the already tenderized wood. But the parts of the wood that are exposed, that aren't weathered, that it would normally be this sort of fresh sapling color or a shade of yellowish white, it's completely sort of this yellowish red and yellowish browns in areas where blood has drained. Dallas's pants, shirt, and like the sleeves, the furs, everything is just soaked in blood, dried, caked, congealing, and fresh.
Well, in light of this, 10 Point will pause only briefly as she approaches and in doing so will actually lift a hand to go into one of the many pockets in her various shawls and shirts, and she tends to wear a kind of worn array of layers. So she will, with one hand, gingerly fish into her pocket and draw out her little buddy, the tiny white mouse that has taken to lingering around her. And so she will gingerly pull him or her out and soothe him a few times with the stroke of a finger, and then, taking a moment, will sidle to one of the trees nearby, reaching up to one of the lower branches, because these aren't pruned, these aren't park trees, these aren't things that need to be all nice looking. It's got its own natural knot holes, its own lower branches, and she'll kind of let him explore his way out of her hand, and then, as a distraction and almost an apology for taking him off of her, she will fetch out some of the wild seed that she kind of absent-mindedly picks while she's tending as a keeper, and will essentially just drop a fistful of grass seed at the nook of that branch against the trunk to give him something to focus on. And once that much is done, takes a moment to brace herself for this particular interaction, and then, ensuring that she is well within Dallas's range of vision, not necessarily that she's looking, but and not coming from straight on either, because that somehow seems too bold. She will nonetheless make a point of approaching where she can be readily seen. Not that the bells can be heard over the creaking and the crunching and the growling, but she will approach, and at perhaps a slightly longer distance than normal, will fall to her knees and raise up her chin. It's still not an insulting distance by any means. It's probably not uncommon at all for an Arun in the midst of a fit of temper to experience a slightly broader gap. But yeah, she will make sure she is amply giving Dallas her space as she just walks up and proverbially assumes the position.
Dallas says 10 points, familiar scent sort of enters into the air. She slows a bit. And when her hands come down to her side, her fingers and knuckles are bleeding and dripping. Bone is exposed at the peaks of each knuckle. And yet she does not look pained or sort of fearful. She just has this look on her face. It's one that 10 Point's probably never seen. I don't think 10 Point's ever seen Dallas truly wrathful. But as she turns her head, her eyes are a shade of amber as she looks over her shoulder at 10 Point. And her lips kind of curl into a snarl.
Oh, she's seen the glint very briefly once before, in the midst of an act of cowardice. But never more than just that one fleeting glare that was promptly shelved away. And to be fair, even now, she can't see it per se, because she has tipped her chin back as far as it can reasonably go. She has made a point of setting herself well down on her knees. She's actually sitting on her heels, so there's no jumping up from this position. She is just as vulnerable as she might be laying on her back, but somehow this seems more submissive than just laying on the ground, especially when faced with a Hamid. This does not keep 10 Point, however, from feeling the glare, because I feel like at this point, Dallas has a certain force of personality going on, as one might say. But nonetheless, she will remain exactly as she has perched herself down and will not budge.
A low rumble emits forth from Dallas as she turns. And she, 10 Point, not being able to see, will hear the vest sort of fall to the ground. She'll hear the various beaded necklaces that she wears clattering. And each step that she takes, she's only maybe 4 or 5 steps away from 10 Point. Each step seems to get heavier, as though mass were changing and shifting. And Dallas takes her time with each step to go up through the forms.
Yep, she will certainly recognize, having become quite familiar with 10 Point's various reactions, that while 10 Point does not budge, in fact, very almost pridefully refuses to back down from her state of submission, is not going to turn tail on this. She can see, especially as an Arun, she can see the slight tensing of muscles and whatnot as 10 Point simply braces herself for whatever is oncoming. She can hear it. There's a reaction. She knows, and she's not moving.
Dallas towers over the cowering 10 Point, or at least the submissive 10 Point, standing there at 9 feet tall. Dallas in her Krynos form just reaches out and snatches the menace up by her neck. And I'm guessing at that size, she is well within arm's reach of both 10 Point and the post.
Sure. That seems reasonable, considering that you get like a point of reach in Krynos. Yeah. I'd say so. I can at least say that during that initial grasp, it's not that she's surprised, per se. She obviously expected something. Mm-hmm. But all the same, there is the immediate reflex to grasp at the hand on her throat, not to try to pull it off, but to try to pull up some of her weight, some small amount, just to make sure she doesn't lose her breath entirely.
And with Dallas having her up, is just going to very aggressively slam her into that post. And she is just going to start tightening her fingers, and her eyes just staring, trying to burn a hole through the back of 10 Point's skull.
Was she grabbing her up by the back of the neck and like pressing her in face first, or is she just slamming her back against it?
Back against it, and she's like staring directly into 10 Point's eyes.
Well, the slam is certainly hard enough to kind of bounce her skull off the post. And she, she can't, she's not some super baller Arun. She definitely makes a noise as she hits that post. It's involuntary and it's strangled, but yeah. And she continues to grasp at the hand. Again, not trying to loosen it per se, but hoping maybe that if she can alleviate some of her own weight, maybe it'll help a little bit. Again, it's definitely not a matter of conscious thought so much as a matter of what one does when they're being strangled.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she clings, and while slammed against it, especially with it tightening, probably kind of croaks out, like hisses out, kind of crackling breath in an attempt to maybe gasp one last lungful before she won't be able to anymore. And she kind of curls a bit, I mean, either way, her weight is suspended. So her legs come up a bit in a almost a fetal sort of way. And considering that there is a glare straight in her eyes, she will frantically try to look anywhere except the Arune's glare, because that just seems like a terrible idea. And
look at me.
And yeah, she initially just kind of shuts her eyes, but with the growl and the not breathing, there is not much she can respond with besides what amounts to compliance.
And Dallas will continue to squeeze. And let's see here. Manipulation. Oh, I was selling myself short last time. How about that?
I was going to say, if you're doing intimidation, you could do a strength intimidation if you wanted.
Yep.
Yeah. All things considered, with the way you're going about it, yeah. You go for that bigger pool, girl. You go for it.
She's not going to say anything.
She doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Even without a roll, like even before the roll, I will tell you that 10 point is. You can see that shift in emotion, for all that she's got that stupid gasping face going.
Yeah. So that is Visage of Fenris.
Oh boy.
And this is going to be a strength intimidation at -1 difficulty. So it's difficulty 7, because I forgot she has the intolerance flaw.
Uh-huh.
So this is going to be in Krynos. God, what is she? 8? Yeah, she's 8. So it's 10 dice at difficulty 7.
Oh boy.
Oh, nice.
So difficulty 7? 1,
Yep.
2, yeah. Yeah. She was already sort of wilting.
Well, here's the brilliant part. With that many successes, and I'll let you kind of decide how 10 point does it, or how 10 point feels about it. But by looking at her right now, I would say that it's possible that 10 point doesn't know whether or not she's not actually trying to kill her at the moment. Like, there's that much wrath in her expression right now.
Oh, why you gotta hurt me like this? Not that this will actually change anything, but yeah, I'm just gonna go over to my messenger here and type pack link thing.
I know what I'm doing.
I'm just gonna type that, and then I'm gonna copy paste this link. And he's probably at the gym, because that's how my life is. But yeah, she was already just kind of wilting and moving on to the point of cowering and starting to potentially even take on a light tremble under the glare alone. But with the addition of cranking it up to fucking 11, 10 point reacts with pure unadulterated terror and begins kind of clawing at the hand around her throat, suspending her against this pole, thrashing wildly, and after leaking pretty nastily through the pack link, because she is not really focused on containing her state of mind right now, will eventually, out of sheer panic, revert to breed in an attempt to force the hand from around her neck and try to take flight. But considering the strength difference here, even in the shared form, yeah. I feel like at worst, maybe she has her feet on the ground now, which really doesn't help with the gut-wrenching horror.
What good would it do? What good would it do to pack up with a deceitful, dishonest, dishonorable menace like you?
Yeah,
what good would it do? Tell me what good it was to let my walls down and to let you in, and only to find out your true nature, just like everything I had thought about your breed.
10 Point conveniently is in no state to provide an answer. She is still panicked, terrified. Even in Krynos, her tail is curled up between her legs, and she is trying desperately to force this hand from around her throat with both of hers, and very carefully not clawing, because surely if it's, if she's not killing her already, that will be all it takes. So yeah, she will even go so far as to at one point pick up a foot and try to kind of wedge it between them and thrust her away that way. Just every pure blind animal panic thing you can imagine some small prey beastie doing to try to get out of the jaws of something.
You want to do a grapple off?
I don't think she can. She's essentially grappled right now. I mean, you don't have her hands down, but
I think we should do it.
I'm just giving you the win on this. Because there's no fucking way. Narrative is good. Shh. Just let it happen. She is grappled right now. You have her pinned by her throat to a giant fucking tree trunk sized post. She is grappled, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's useless thrashling, really.
Okay. So yeah, she is literally just squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. Her other hand is down at her side, and her claws are notably not being used right at this point. Perhaps the claws at this point are sort of wedged into the surface of that trunk, sort of as a locking mechanism, and she's more or less just leaning forward, I guess, at this point to apply the pressure to the windpipe. But she's standing there, and she kind of cants her head to one side. Nothing to say in your defense, mule?
And I should switch my thing. But yeah, at this point, 10 Point is probably on the verge of losing consciousness, considering that she's not getting any air. So, between not being able to speak and not even being able to breathe, no, she has nothing to say. She just continues to frantically kind of kick and push and shove and wrench and anything, casting her weight entirely in one direction or the other in an attempt to just, even if it means falling to the ground, it's better than passing out. It's better than what might come after she passes out.
At that point, Dallas is going to sort of flex her fingers to give sort of like that box. It's not going to allow 10 Point to move her head away. Like it's trapped in there unless, she tries to actually wrench her way out of it. But it's enough to allow her to get a full gasp in.
And oh boy, does she.
And Dallas is going to wait for the coughing and all the hacking to sort of get to the point where it's just a really labored, and then she's back on it again, pressing in. I'm sorry, Katie, but this is definitely a black dog thing to do.
It is, and I love you. 10 Point doesn't, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, 10 Point does, which is why she's trying so hard. But you still have Visage of Fenris, and she's still terrified. Potentially beyond her ability to speak, really. she's not flailing wildly anymore, not now that she can breathe. She probably still has a hand kind of gripped around the wrist, not trying to move it, but just kind of there as if to reassure herself that maybe she can do something the next time she tries to squeeze. I don't know. But no, she is just pitching her head up again. She definitely is trying to look anywhere except at Dallas.
And when when 10 Point sort of lifts her head up again, Dallas squeezes again.
At least this time she gasps a breath desperately and probably issues what for Krynos amounts to kind of a piteous squeak as she again begins after a couple moments to writhe and kick and try to dislodge her again.
Mm-hmm.
It's a futile gesture, but she's trying.
I figure that Dallas is going to do this 2 or 3 more times. Getting her to the point where she is at a full panic, as if I'm blacking out, and then letting go. And on that 3rd time, as that pure breed hits the air, Dallas is going to roll because she's going to pick 10 Point up and slam her over on the ground, specifically with the intent to do damage.
Okay.
But because it's a slam, it's not lethal.
Okay.
So strength.
You roll whatever you think is appropriate.
Yeah. Strength brawl. Yeah. Okay. So that is 11. Oh. Oops.
What did you? Oh.
Den Slegel.
You made it sad.
It's sad. I didn't hold down the shift key. Ooh.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Roll that strength damage.
8 plus 6 is 14, yeah?
Yeah.
Damn diggity.
That's 1, 2, 3 soaked out of 6, so she'll take 3 bashing. She hits the ground heavily. And considering you have the same number of health levels, they'll very possibly we'll say her arm gets kind of twisted under her in a nasty way as she hits the ground, and there's kind of an audible pop, probably her shoulder. And the sound that she makes when she hits the dirt is pitiful. It is that canine yipe. And she, upon hitting the ground, lays there for several moments, doesn't budge, not even to correct her arm. Though the second Dallas so much as shifts her weight, the frantic retreat is going to begin.
Dallas will spin around, but when she does so, in that point, she is relaxing down into Hamid. There's just something satisfying out of character about satisfying about Krynos cowering from Hamid.
Oh, she does not care what form you're in right now. No, she makes with the completely disgraceful mad scramble with one arm kind of tucked, like churning up the sawdust, as she very abruptly puts just enough distance between the two of you that at least she'll see you coming the next time you turn on her. And then just kind of stays very close to the ground, tail still tucked, ears pricked, and eyes on your feet, actually.
And at this point, if that familiar scent of pure breed wants to make his grand entry.
Oh yeah, there's a low-lying growl from Aiden from behind, was signifying his arrival as he's walking over, like half still painted, some of them still not fully painted yet as he walks over. What are you doing?
She's speaking to,
Yeah,
I'm guessing,
he
Dallas.
basically posted this. He's like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean?
10 Point's answer is probably more pitiful yet than the reaction to hitting the ground, which is she will make a mad scramble to take shelter behind the newly arrived Hamid in Krynos, which is it's just a picture, really. And there will be another audible pop as the damage to her shoulder corrects itself very abruptly. Though no squeak this time.
To give you an image, Torna,
Mm-hmm.
Dallas is covered in just reeks of her own dried blood. Like her face is covered in blood, or well, not covered in blood, but like the way
Spattered
someone
with
looks. Yeah, the way someone looks like if they were previously bleeding from their head. Her forearms, and hands are caked in dried blood. Her clothes, like her vest, which is sitting over by her vest, her scarf, her necklace. They're all like caked in dried blood, and they're all smells of her. Like there's not a drop of 10 points of blood anywhere to be seen. And it definitely looks like freshly knitted wounds are on her knuckles as she turns around and looks back at Aiden in the pitiful 9-foot form that has probably made itself about 3 or 4 feet.
Oh, yeah. She is pretty much as low to the ground as you can get, but kind of huddled behind Aiden's ankles.
What is this?
Catharsis.
Catharsis.
Got really quiet.
Yeah, it seems like your mic shifted or something.
Yeah, I probably moved it a bit. Okay, any better?
Much better.
Catharsis. So that sheer panic I felt from my packmate is catharsis.
Panic?
The panic when they know they're going to die panic.
After this entire month, and she sort of rubs her hand, sort of rubbing out the sort of residual pain of freshly knitted skin and bone and whatnot. Didn't you tell me that fear is the best tool to teach a metis?
We have a battle, Dallas. I need her functional. She's a theurge. She's a healer. She could be the difference between you and I dying in a fight. And if she's too scared to even lift her hand, what use is she?
If she's too scared to lift her hand, then she has learned nothing over this past month.
And what is this you're doing? Catharsis because you're offended over something? I thought you learned better than that.
Offended? She'll kind of look at Aiden. Just kind of like not like a dumbfounded look, but sort of like, really?
Well, what is it then? Why are you covered in your own blood and then taking such violent rage out of my packmate?
She sighs and kind of looks away from him. Because I made the mistake.
I see. You walk over. You made the first mistake that most Garu make when it comes to metas. You allow your personal feelings to cloud your judgment.
Yeah, I did.
And whose fault is that?
Oh no,
Hers
fault is
or
mine.
yours? I see. So, breaking her to pieces, that's your response.
No, I'm well aware we had a battle today. What happened here? Bit of temper getting the better of me, I guess. Angry. Angry at her. Angry at myself.
And you need to learn. You're a Naroon, and I get that. You have a lot of rage. But you need to learn. They're closer to the worm than any of us. Than any of us ever will be. Because they're bred from it. They're bred from Garo's misdeeds. That's not their fault. But it's our job to bring them back, and we do it the harsh way, the real way. Anger out on them because you're upset because you let your feelings get in the way is not helping them or not helping you. In a way, you're no better than what she's doing right now as he looks at 10 Point disgusted, sniveling on the floor, basically.
She's just kind of... She's not sniveling per se, but she's definitely still huddled right where she was, where he was standing before,
Taking my
and
willpower,
looking at the ground.
taking my willpower for the Bravo nature and spending it immediately because that. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
she is right where she stopped behind him. She did not move forward with him.
At least 2 successes. No, well, yeah, no, she's in Hamid. So 2 successes worth of a frenzy roll there.
How long does that gift's effect last, generally?
Visage of Fenris.
Mm-hmm.
Rest of the scene.
Awesome! Yeah, she stays right there.
Dallas, as Aiden says that and her head snaps up, there's definitely that. Aiden's been in touch with his rage over the past 48 hours.
Oh yeah, he knows in a room when it's getting mad. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I correct myself. She does not stay right there. She edges back.
Aiden
Especially
doesn't.
if Dallas is going to snap up a glance at her. Nope. She
She's not.
actually retreats a
Oh,
step.
no, it's at me.
It's at
Oh,
Aiden.
okay.
Aiden puffs his chest out, and I mean towers, and stares right back. That hurt, didn't it?
Dallas's lips are quivering and not in I'm about to cry way. There is. I think Aiden would be able to recognize that if it wasn't him, she would have unloaded on him, either verbally or more than likely physically.
But remember, Dallas, I'm a ragabash. I tell you the things you don't like to hear. And I tell you because I respect you. I don't sugarcoat myself. Especially towards people I like.
She lets out a chuff. And that's at the point where she kind of crosses her arms over her chest, deflating somewhat.
And he'll walk right up to her very calmly. You need to start using this. It points at her head before you start letting that rage out. She's my Omega, not yours. Not yet. You have to learn to curb your rage, and especially even with an Omega. Because when you come into our pack, she's going to be your family. And it's your duty to remind her of her place, but not break her.
That's the point. That's the rub. Modicum of respect, modicum of camaraderie shown to her, and the thanks that we get is an outright lie.
And you're thinking like a human. If you'd been beaten every day of your life, Dallas, like she's been, she grew up in Ireland on a Fianna Sept. A real Fianna Sept. Do you think she would not lie to get out of trouble? If it meant less of a beating? They lie because it's their inclination to lie. And it's up to us to decipher it. And then, when it matters, punish it. But senselessly beating it, it's not going to learn otherwise, is it?
She was supposed to be better than that. We already have one lying mule on this sept.
All of the mules lie, Dallas. Every single one of them. She, points over at 10 point, is the best one out of all of them. But even she is still a menace. To expect her to do that is expecting William White to suddenly start praising the litany.
For what it's worth,
I can't help.
If she's gestured to, 10 point has gone from an outright the continuous kind of terrified, tense posture to something of a deflated one, and rather than constantly studying Dallas for the moment at least, just looking at the ground.
The mention of William White honoring the litany, Dallas can't help but kind of let out a sort of an involuntary chuckle that kind of bursts forth from your lips.
He'll smile a bit. You have to be realistic in your expectations of metas. And you made the first slip, which many guru make. They think of them as human guru when they're not. They're metas.
So many lessons I didn't learn from my parentage.
I didn't learn from my parents either. I learned from my dead mother.
No. She's still in one piece. She looks over at 10 point.
Oh, she ain't looking back. She's still just kind of in a huddle, more relaxed at this point. But aside from well, actually no, she didn't have to do that because that look wasn't at her. Mm-hmm. So no, she's still planted right where she settled before, but she has relaxed somewhat because her packmate is between her and this threat, and the threat seems to have reduced itself somewhat. So no, she's just pretty blatantly settled on being ashamed of herself. No peony necessary.
it ever gets into your head again to be deceitful to the people that had your back, that have your back, what's going to be your play then, 10 Point?
Aiden shake his head and look down. That's the point, Dallas. They're always going to be deceitful. Every last
And
one
well,
of them.
it's not loud, and it's spoken to the ground, so it takes, a little listening to catch it. She does mutter, "Never again, Raya."
Just going to look up at Aiden as he starts to go on that hole. They're deceitful, and she's going to cut him a look. Dare I say, almost a challenging look.
He gets right in her face.
She doesn't back down, but she looks up
Oh no,
at
he's
him.
not. Oh, he's not expecting her to. Yeah.
He bears right into, or she bears right into him.
Watch again. Watch her, Dallas. Open your eyes and watch. What would you do if Skovgard did what you did to her, and he said, "Never again, Dallas, lie to me"? What would you say?
I think I misunderstood your meaning out of character.
Oh, basically he's saying, if you got all imposing, beat the living shit out of her, and then went, "Never lie to me again," what would your first reaction be? Yes, Raya.
There is sort of a look of acknowledgement, but at the same time, Dallas is still there in his grill. It's not the fact that she stops and then begins again. She's your family, right?
Yeah.
She's your pack, right?
Yep.
The worst sin I have ever seen. Even worse than the birth of one of those things. Of them is the deceitful nature that someone can have between familial bonds. Agent.
Oh, that hits her like a ton of bricks, too.
That goes right back to everything, who I am now. I cannot look at her and not see the face of the woman who betrayed my father.
He actually folds his arms. And is that her fault? That you're clouding your judgment with your own personal feeling?
And that's what makes her sort of back down. As much as I get a rune can.
As much as I get a rune can back down, oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, come the next glance around, 10 Point has given up the huddle and sort of gone down on arms and knees, and at this point has her nose probably practically against the dirt, and of all the ridiculous things for Krynos to do, has tears rolling down her muzzle.
Personal feelings, yeah, they got in the way. And that's probably never going to change when it comes to issues like that. That act, that deceit, is how I lost the woman that I loved more than anything in the world growing up.
I understand that hate. That's more than you think. But remember one thing. With those personal feelings, those everything, there is one rule I abide by. That is the nation before everything else, including your own feelings. She's a Metis. She lied. However, you're so fixated on your own personal pain, the lesson is lost on you. And I can't help till you decipher your pain from what you need to do. And that's something I can't help with.
All I can do is make sure that this doesn't happen again.
And all I can tell you is the truth. Metis lie. Always. And there's a part of you that'll have to accept that and correct it. But when you let that in, as he points right at their chest, right at the heart,
Mm-hmm.
the worm's already won.
Dallas just kind of lets out a heavy sigh, and finally that bellow of air that's been filled with scalding hot furnace fire finally lets out. If smoke were able to come out of her ears, it would be at this point, or out of her mouth, it would be at this point.
He put his hand on the shoulder, giving her like a small comforting squeeze.
See, that's the thing, Dallas. When you do that, she just leans forward and leans right into Aiden.
Yeah, he just basically, no, he's actually very comforting then. Like immediate shift from stern, angry father look to immediate caring, basically.
And yeah, he's gonna feel her like she's actually. Yeah. That was enough. She's probably crying at this point. She's not like blubbering or sobbing. It's just you can feel how hot she is.
Oh yeah, no, he
Hear the
doesn't say anything. Just gently strokes her hair, and after about 10 minutes, he'll just gently lift her up and wipe away the tears and all that, and look at her. Remember, you're Fenrir.
Yeah. Got enough Fianna in me though to get hot under the collar.
And that's fine. I'm doing my job as of my auspice to point it out to you.
It's appreciated.
And just nod once. Take some time, clear your head, and then get ready to kill those spirals. I need you focused.
Yeah.
He'd give her a slight another squeeze of her shoulder, and we'll look at 10 point, like clicking his fingers, rise, and then we'll walk off. Being very affectionate towards Dallas, but we'll, keep up that stern posture, like, can't be vulnerable in front of everybody out here. It's too public. We'll walk off, basically.
And yeah, the click of the fingers is all it takes. Her attention reorients, and regardless of the emotional state she may be in, she complies immediately. And she'll be up on her feet, and very much akin to when she followed Balian as they first entered the Sept. She will lurch along at his ankle in a state of very flagrant submission and obedience, just following along, an ear constantly on him to wait for her, as if expecting further cues, but she just reverts to what's easy. At worst, she will, the only deviant motion will be her eventually bringing an arm up to rub across her muzzle to clear away the dampness before she continues to just lumber in his wake. I suppose with that,
I think Dallas will, at that point, will walk over and get her things and decide it's time to go clean up, go see her kin before she heads out.
alrighty then. Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Then with that, we will say thank you, players, for playing and watchers for watching. We'll see you next time. Living World of Darkness, Rage Across New York.